Amie, I hear you got some kind of a big news for me or something. Amie Ichikawa, so good to see you.
You too, Joey. I
And
did have a
I
surprise.
mean, I did see you in person too back in December showing up at CIW, right?
Yes, that was
That was
something.
fun. Well, fun to meet you. Not a great thing. It was an amazing event that you had planned all this caroling outside of women's prisons. And this is around Los Angeles area. And you did Chowchilla. What else besides CIW and Chowchilla? Are those the two?
We just did those two. Those are the two, big prisons in California. I mean, CCWF is the largest women's prison in the world. Uh, but the only two places where women are incarcerated in California are like extremely small. They're little satellite prisons attached to some of the men's prisons for, I think, low level offenders or women who are close to the gate, almost done with their terms.
Wow.
But the populations are under like two or 300 at both of the smaller places.
Well, what I got to experience with you and the number of people, men and women that you had out for those carols, was hearing that women, we could hear the women's voices inside after, you were doing this. It's such important work. So please just tell us who you are, whatever this surprise is. You said, I got a surprise or so. Ooh.
Well, this week I found out I'm a woman of color.
Oh, and how did that happen?
Well, I'm excited. I've never really been that I'm, you know, how do I even racially non-binary? No, since I'm Japanese and white, I've never identified with either, and um, I've never thought a whole lot about race. I just live.
Mm-hmm.
When I got out of prison and saw that there was a need for some advocacy, I moved forward just like I always do as a person, as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw there was a need for to restore the voice of the voiceless, I meant the voiceless, all the voiceless, like
Mm-hmm.
all of us women.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that I was being heard as a formerly incarcerated woman of color,
Mm-hmm.
as I just figured I was a formerly incarcerated woman. But now that I'm aware of the further divisions, the subdivisions, and the sub-subdivisions, and the sub-sub-subcommittees,
Mm-hmm.
it's been an eye-opener. It's been an eye-opener.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't believe it took me so long to realize that.
What is it that's snapped off for you? Because this idea of race, which is so, huge in America. And I always try to tell my friends that are outside of this country that just are like, I don't know what's with you people. I have a friend in Sweden, a Black man who is from the Caribbean originally. And he said, Joey, that race is a social construct. And I was like, yeah, but most people don't think about that way. It's very, and he's like, well, it is. And people need to get the hell out of, using this all the time. And there are women of color that very specifically have been told when they get out of situations like you were formerly incarcerated, that's the first thing they're told: make sure that you come across in this way, X, Y, and Z, that will it just amplify this idea again that you are other.
I'm different.
So
That I'm
why are you saying this? I know you're making this big reveal. It's like you're coming out.
I am. I'm coming out as I am racially non-binary. No, seriously, what happened is I just had this, you know, paradigm shift. It was this moment. I finally realized I wasn't being platformed, or I'm not being platformed as a woman, speaking as a woman for formerly incarcerated people. I'm a token.
Mm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
I'm a token. Um, I mean, essentially it doesn't matter, because these are things that have to be they have to be talked about. They need attention, and by any means necessary, am I going to do what I have to do to get the women inside some relief.
Mm-hmm.
It just was surprising. I'm sure it was obvious to everybody else. I'm 100% sure everybody else knows, and I'm the last one to find out. But my whole life, ever since I was little, I didn't understand. My parents would ask, who's your little friend, or what color is she? And I'm like, I don't know. She's a little bit tanner than I am. She looks maybe like how I do in the summertime. I
Mm,
didn't think, oh, she's Black or she's Filipino, or it never crossed my mind. And I think I
mhm,
still carried that same thought process into my adulthood. Uh, so it just kind of made me understand that there are these things that I thought didn't exist anymore. At least I didn't think they were going to exist in a community of women. I
mhm,
thought maybe there would be shelter from this kind of division in a women's only space,
mm.
and that's not it's not what's going on. It's permeated everything.
Yeah.
It never died. It never went away. It's the same thing. I mean, I feel like we're still in Seneca Falls and they're kicking, Sojourner Truth off of the platform. It's the same thing. It's the same evil. It's just changed its clothes and, you know, updated its style and gotten a Twitter account. It's the same stuff.
Mm. Well, I'm older than you are, and I think about your father, Japanese, right? Your mom, white. There goes the race thing. And in my generation, it was still very new that there were these, quote, mixed race marriages. And in my dad, that couldn't even happen because of, right, especially here in California, where I know you're located as well. My father told me when I was really little, I remember him talking about when he was in high school and that he had a Japanese friend in high school. He was around in Santa Monica in the Los Angeles area. And one day his friend wasn't there anymore. And he didn't know. And then he heard that he went off to a camp and he heard the word camp and he thought, wow, he didn't tell me. That sounds like that's fun. I mean, that's not that long ago when we look at the history of that. So I grew up and then he told me what happened. And that's where, when we start to become politicized about things and stuff like that. So your parents being able even to get married because it was illegal a little bit before they even got together, right? So, yeah, these are the things. And of course, you pop in and it's not, again, you removed another, generation from that and those laws. So I know we had that discussion, a while back where I was saying to you, you said you didn't understand something about ways that you were treated and why women were doing this. And I'm like, well, your last name is Ichikawa. What the hell did you think? And you're looking at me like, I don't know. And I have a very ethnic first name. Joey's been a nickname for a very long time. I've used it, but I have this very ethnic first name that some people mispronounce all the time. And that when I use that, like when I go to job interviews and stuff, I get treated very differently, very differently. So this is great to hear this. And I wonder, this is something where you could take advantage of and you could be really, you could be really savvy about this and try to use it to your advantage. Or, just like you say, I think one of the beauties that I find with you, Amie, and especially since I got to meet you and I keep talking about when you meet people in person, how different it is, the chemistry, the everything, and the idea that everything consistently since I met you before online, and probably a lot because you were incarcerated, you did have the history that you do have, and that you've come from this mixed, kind of thing, even though you weren't even thinking about it. I knew you have been consistently steady with integrity and all the stuff. And I met some of the women since Zooms that we've had. I've met some of the women that you're trying to help. I mean, tell me some more. What you've come up with this realization? Does it make you feel emboldened in any way, or just, I don't know?
It's done two things. It's been super aha. Like, ever since I was as far back as I can remember. I've maintained my beliefs and I've been pretty consistent. And I remember one of the most common things my mom would tell me is, it's not about race. It's not about race. Yes, it is. Everything is. Everything is. And I would argue that point. See, I think maybe it is. I think I think there's something else going on. No. But I see now. It really is, and it ties in with the whole thing of me not understanding how controversial women's rights are. I came in at WeSpa thinking, who is nobody's going to be there in opposition to somebody, flashing little girls in a naked part of the spa. Nobody is going to be on the other side. There won't be no.
Could you talk about the We Spa thing a little bit? Because there'd be people that would be watching this video and go, what's she talking about?
We Spa, well, I think that was around the time we met. There was an incident at the We Spa in Hollywood in Koreatown where a man had a semi-erect penis into the naked area of the women's side of the spa. And keep in mind, there's the men's side, the women's side, and the gender neutral area. But this person chose to go make a beeline for the area where there are children. So, I'm pissed about it because that's a hill I will definitely die on. I'm super like anti-pedo. I'm not ever going to change that stance for any reason. And I was excited. I thought, okay, this is going to be an opportunity for me to attend this protest and meet some other women who want to fight for what's right for women and children. Mm-hmm. And I was totally off in my perception of what was going to happen, because I was thinking rally. I was thinking like a pep rally. I wasn't thinking protest, and I wasn't thinking violent protest, and I wasn't thinking violent, humongous protest with a large opposition to where I was coming from. I at that point saw how political and how politically motivated all this stuff is. The most basic things that I would have assumed are nonpartisan issues that everyone would be on the same side of are humongously, there's just a huge void between sides. I honestly thought that this was nonpartisan kind of stuff, that this was just, this is right and this is wrong. And it's not. I was disappointed. I was surprised.
How does you're saying about race again? Is that what you're saying? That is something that when you were at We Spa that it played out some way, and you, or post talking about being at We Spa?
No, it was that's when I realized how much controversy there is in everything that I had oversimplified in my head. It's very complex. It's such a tangled web. And the more I learn, the more people I meet, the more I'm coming to the realization that it's all tied up into one big ball of oppression. It's they're all tools that are serving the same agenda, just to keep us all separated, to keep us all confused and at each other's throats. And it's very unpleasant. But now I know I just have to be strategic. It's time to strategize and use opportunities like this one to talk about the important stuff, because it's only a matter of time before, we all get deplatformed, targeted, canceled. But I'm ready. I mean, we know what we sort of know what we're up against at this point. I'm never going to put anything past them, but I feel like moving forward with the experience and knowledge that I've gained now, it's going to be a very interesting game plan. I'm going to move I don't know, it's just going to be more tactical. It's going to be far more tactical, less like Care Bearish. I'm like disillusioned now. The whole rose-colored glasses things are off, and I know what's going on now. It's why you're still in the fight. It's why I just didn't know. I feel bad. I didn't know how bad it was, Joey. I didn't know it was really like this.
Amie, how old are you?
40.
Hey, why is it 40? Hey, no shame, right? So 40, and you're just realizing that the thing that I got with from you about the thing with We Spa is I remember seeing you in this little video, and you were wearing woman, adult, human, female, right? And you were just like kind of cocky and hey, I'm having a good time, and then it was like, what? And then the stuff started happening. I mean, physically, you met some wonderful women there who also were experiencing some stuff. I'd say, I mean, there was some, there was some things that turned kind of violent, and threatening, and it was really horrible. But you realize at 40 years old, I think were you not part of the generation that you just didn't even think about being a woman so much and being oppressed as a woman because you thought your foremothers kind of took care of that stuff. We got our rights, everything's equal and I can just let it go or whatever.
I thought we were done. I thought we were done. I didn't realize that all the rights that we learned about in school are imaginary and that it was faux. We don't even have any rights. We're totally secondary. We're second-class citizens. And then being formally incarcerated, and then now realizing you really are a minority. It's the levels of repression are stifling. Like there has to be such a strong push forward together, or else we're not going to make it through this whole war on women, because it's full on war, and I don't say it casually. Like we really are defending our right to existence with it. They're trying to just erase us, and they're starting the hard part for me to express is that they're starting in the prison system. Once everybody gets used to what's going on in there and it's completely normalized, that's when the full-on assault is going to occur out here on this side. Once they can gauge how long it takes everybody to forget about it, to just let it go, it is what it is, then they can have their entire gauge and know how long it's going to take out here to carry out the same mission.
Tell me some about what it looks like on the inside right now, particularly you're in California, like I said, where it's such a state of trying to prove to the rest of the world what progress looks like.
Progress.
And so tell me, I mean, the most vulnerable population, I've been working on the protests and trying to get kids from stopping being in these medical experiments where people think they can change sex or whatever, or as they'd like to say, gender. And we know that that's not it. What the heck are they doing with women that are incarcerated and cannot get out, cannot get normal access to resources you and I have on the outside? And how is this whole thing playing out with erasing women?
Well, I see the incarcerated female population the same way I see children. These are people that are extremely vulnerable, and they're programmed, and they're very conditioned. Even in my experience inside, you go in with the mind frame with this, I'm going to be good and they're going to let me out. Even people who are sentenced to 50 to life, I'm not going to file any complaints. I'm not going to be a problem inmate because I want to go home. Well, this conditioning has led to being the biggest doormats you could even imagine. There's lawsuits filed every day in the men's prisons. The women rarely file lawsuits, rarely file inmate complaints. Because they're comfort creatures. They're afraid of losing. They're afraid of losing their date. They're afraid of losing their date they don't even have. They're afraid of losing double mattresses, or it's so sad. I'm trying to encourage them to stand up for the rights that they do have. They've got to start thinking tactically and look at how the men advocate for themselves. Look at how we don't. We can't be afraid. Sorry, it's my dog. We can't be afraid of what's going to happen. Your freedom's gone. Your freedom, your respect, agency, and dignity is gone. So you get in and stand up for yourself and fight. You go in there and there's no medical. It exists. Actually, the Inspector General's report just came out on CCWF and said that medical was adequate. I shared that with 1,300 women that are in a private group I created years ago, and the responses were like, they're just pages of people that outraged,
Mhm.
outraged completely, because you can't get an x-ray. You could sit there with a broken bone for weeks, months. You can't get in for a mammogram. You can't get any assistance. It'll take 3 or 4 months to get a response for a request for mental health assistance. But if you were to walk in and say you wanted some testosterone, they're going to give that to you, no questions asked. This is just a continuation of California eugenics. Just because they got caught doing the forced hysterectomies, it doesn't mean they're going to stop doing what they're doing.
Whoa. Back up a minute now.
Mhm.
Why you've got a broken bone on, you can be waiting 2 months to even have that looked at or whatever. But why are you getting testosterone? For what purpose that is this?
I have no idea. Well, I personally think it's for to sterilize everybody. They're really they have some or to it's everywhere.
Because
There's
testosterone pumps us up no
Mhm.
matter what and can be very euphoric
Mhm.
and in that way addictive.
And it hypersexualizes you. And when there's narcotics and testosterone and depression and oppression and permanent quarantines, it's definitely a cocktail for that is deadly. Uh, Nobody's explaining to people the long-term side effects of what's going to happen when you're doing this to yourself. Nobody's explaining, it's extremely dangerous to mix narcotics and testosterone. Nobody's has to go through counseling or get a psych eval. It's just being issued out. That Suboxone, uh, it's all over. There's people on Suboxone, which is an opiate suppressor, um, that have absolutely no need to be on it. This is a giant science project. It's uh, an experiment in a compliance, and it's bad. I mean, look at the vaccines when we were, I think it was 2009, and there was the swine flu, and I was there, and I was told if I didn't get in line and get my vaccine immediately, that I was going to go to jail. And because there's jail inside of prison. So I was afraid. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to keep my date, even though I lost it several times after. I didn't want to get in trouble. So I got in line and got my shot, and it just now that I'm looking back at it, I understand what a horrible act of compliance, what a breakdown of my respect for myself, my bodily autonomy. I didn't have any of that anyway, but it just put a big old stamp on it that verified that I don't matter, your body doesn't matter, your state property. But that's what's going on in there. Medical is really, really, really bad. It's really
And yet
bad.
they got like everything's adequate is what the report was. Now you said narcotics and testosterone. What kind of narcotics are you talking about? And how the heck are women getting any drugs in prison?
Police bring them in. I mean, people are on payroll. It happens, and I'm not like on some mission to completely eliminate that, because I know it's not that I don't want to get distracted by that, because it's a way bigger problem than I can take on at this point. I want to focus on getting them at least in an environment that's free of rapist penises. But it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's a huge industry within the entire prison system, not just ours.
Okay. So getting back, you started to say this, you just, more than hinting at this, we are looking at a time and a situation right now where this new phrase of gender identity is really being written into law, and it is absolutely eliminating, it runs over the ideas of same sex spaces where women, like in a women's prison, already have to be concerned about living and making a new life as much as possible surrounded by women. But rape is the last thing really that women think about when they're going into prison where there are other women. They're not going to get pregnant in theory, unless something were to happen where we, guards and whatever we see in terms of movies and stories that you read, we know that certain things happen. What is it that's happened in the California prisons just in this barely in less than a year that you've learned about because of gender ideology smashing down women having at least the sanctity and the safety in terms of not being worried about supposedly being raped?
Well, the gender self-ID law, which was
Is that 2005 with Schwarzenegger?
No, I think Senator Weiner authored it. Oh, the bathroom law. Yeah, that's right. This was way before. Was it 2005?
Because 2005 is because that's what allowed that guy to do what we saw that he did. It was when Schwarzenegger was the governor.
That's an old one. And it wasn't, it never affected me, and it didn't have a real prevalence in daily life. The one that really was the kicker was SB 132, the Transgender Respect, Agency, and Dignity Act, which has the most sneaky snake language, because you're thinking respect, agency, and dignity. Everybody needs that. Of course, people need that. Of course, the trans community members need that in prison. But wait for the kicker. This is what nobody has that. Nobody has that in prison. No one. So what they've done with this is create a privilege group, because the things that are provided with the implementation of this law are things that are completely unheard of in the Department of Corrections. Upon entering the prison, when you're in receiving, if you're trans-identified, gender fluid, non-binary, police.
These are all these. Okay, so say that again. Gender fluid, non-binary, transgender, what else?
Mayhu, two-spirit, anybody that falls outside of gender normative categories is protected under this bill. So everyone except for women. And what it's done is you come into prison, you're in receiving, they ask you what your honorifics and pronouns are.
Your what? Honorifics? What is that?
Miss or ma'am or.
Got you.
And it's funny because when the first time I read the bill, I was like, wow, that is really nice. What a nice
progressive.
What a courtesy, because when I got there, that is not what they told me. They didn't care what my honorifics were, what my name was, what my last name was. They didn't care about any of that. All they cared about was get your house over there, X37739, get over there. That was it. So if this kind of courtesy was provided to everyone coming in, that this wouldn't be such an issue. But this is just the beginning. You are then given the opportunity to make a request to go to the prison of the gender that you most identify with. And this is one of the more upsetting things, being that non-binary individuals identify as neither, why then would they gain access to the women's facility? Why would you send someone who identifies as neither but has a penis? Why would they go to the women's prison? This has created opportunities where people don't have to pretend, you don't have to fake it, you don't have to, there's a big misconception about this, that people are pretending to be, women to get access. No, you don't even have to do any of that. There's no need. You don't have to shave your beard. You don't have to, renounce your gang affiliation or anything. You just ask and receive. And even more disturbing is that out of the 287 requests to transfer right now, 98 are sex offenders.
200 and how many? And these are men that say that they feel like a woman?
Not necessarily. These could be just people that identify as non-binary or gender non-conforming. So there aren't.
We are talking about most, or these are men that are making these fake identities up.
You don't have. There's no criteria that you have to fit in, because it's all based on self-perception.
Uh-huh.
There's no guardrails. So you can also not be denied for any reason related to your sexual orientation, your physical anatomy, your criminal history. So loosely translated, that means you can be a straight rapist with a penis who's currently serving a sentence for rape and qualify for that move. And you can't be denied for any of the reasons that seem the most obvious reasons for immediate, disqualification from that. It's very backwards. And this was misadvertised to the supporters, to the women. Everybody was told this was going to be for people with sensitive needs who were being, horribly abused in the men's prison. That's not what happened at all. That's not what happened at all. This didn't protect anybody. All it did was widen the victim pool and further deflect the fact that there's rapes that occur in the men's prison, and that's never been addressed. It's never the men's responsibility to be more sensitive to their, sensitive needs people. It's somehow become women's responsibility on top of all the things they already experience, being battered, abused, trafficked. Now, on top of that, they are being housed with people that are a daily reminder of why they're there, how they got there, how they're worthless. Imagine if you were there for, unfortunately, accidentally, or defending yourself in a domestic violence type situation, and you're serving life because you killed your woman beater. And then you get housed with somebody who's a serial rapist. How are you supposed to have any self-esteem or value of self, or think that you're worth anything, or think that you're more than zero, less than zero? This is horrible. As soon as I found out, I mean, and then the things that trickled out as the implementation started, the posters in medical saying what your options were when you get pregnant, the condom memos, the staff saying, well, you better go thank your governor, other staff saying things like, you better shut your mouth or I'm going to put a rapist in there with you. It's just there's no respite, there's no breaks. It's like a freaking nightmare. I can't. And then you have to watch as a woman, many women, I mean, there's people been there for 30 years. You're watching people come in from, the men's prison, and they have more rights than you've ever had. They're wearing like this whole badge of privilege, and you have to sit there and take it and take it and take it, and know that you're not going to get those opportunities. You can't get a bed move. You can't get the job of your choice. You're never going to be able to punch somebody in the face and not get a write-up. It's very stifling. I don't even know how they can breathe at this point.
And Amie, after you left, when you were freed and you decided, I'm kind of skipping this because I know that this happened, but you decided you wanted to dedicate yourself to helping women when they got out to reacclimate to society and all this. And you had none of this in your head, right? And you take this job on, you decide you're going to create this, organization or whatever. You wake up to this, oh my God, they're trying to get rid of like woman, the word woman itself and all this. And you start becoming politicized about this movement that I'd been in already for a while, and a number of us, and you're waking up. How did this affect your original mission that you had in your mind about, I'm going to help this woman get a job. I'm going to help her learn, get some schooling and get a degree. And I'm going to make sure that, this and this. And now this thing is, it sounds like, this must have been thrown at you like a bottle that was already cracked open and broken glasses flying all over your mission. And so it seems like it's just stymied in a way for you to even be able to do the most basic. Because I told you some of my history of living with a woman who had been formerly incarcerated, and she became a prison rights activist when she got out of prison. And that's what she was doing, was that basic stuff, education, job, housing, don't no recidivism, how to have, a life, how to make a new life. And that's what I think were your goals. And it seems like instead it's like a dump truck pulled up to your house and you saw it, you were expecting letters and you saw this big dump truck and you find out it's manure, it's like horse manure on your front door.
That's exactly what happened. I had this grandiose idea that we were going to help connect our sisters with like dignified reentry services. Well, guess what? There's a lack of that too. There's plenty of funding for men-centered programs. There's plenty of funding for everybody else but women. There's very few programs or entities that exist for women, and we do have different needs. There's nothing wrong with that. I've always wanted to celebrate our differences and love them. There's nothing wrong with being different. My needs are different than a man's needs when he gets out. My needs are different entirely. We have some things in common. We have some similar traumas, but there has to be some specialized opportunities and services. So, I'm thinking we can still handle all of this. We can still get all this done somehow. And it's difficult because we're having to create things as we go. As people get out, we're having to make stuff happen because there's such a limited amount of resources when people come home. And then our own community, everybody's so kind of got their hands tied because there's certain things that they can't do or they can't advocate for because of funding. Funding is all related to what you're able to stand up for or what you're able to offer. So most of the places are that originally were women's services are now for women and trans-identified femmes or the gender fluid community members. That's why I
this other umbrella of identities is what you're saying.
Right. And I'm sure, this opens up a lot of doors for funding and for just opportunities in general. So I knew that being exclusively for women, by women, about women was going to limit us as far as, the funding pool, which is okay because somehow we make it. Somehow our needs get met. It's not easy. I mean, it's not like I am not severely in debt, but we make it happen. And there's just a couple of us. It's not like we have an army or an office or anything.
But you have a donation. I know that you've got this website up and it's got a donation button or whatever. Is that money that's coming and it gets to be used by you and for whatever you're needing? Is that what's going on?
$1,000, all $1,000. But we can stretch it. We know how to make it. If we had the budget like other people do, we would definitely be able to stretch it and make good use of it. But things happen kind of like $1 at a time. The way it happens in exact amounts. If we need a bus ticket for somebody to get home from Chowchilla to San Diego, somehow we'll get, $147.52. And, I'm not complaining. I'm blessed, and it's awesome that it happens that way. But it's cushion sure would be nice at some point. But we're working on it. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. But none of us are really banking on getting rich off of this. We know that this is not how it's going to be. None of us are going to be balling out of control out of our efforts because real. People who are really in it to win it are about the people aren't going to be rich. That's not how it's going to happen.
And is anybody helping you to, promote whatever so that you can get more money driven to you? Because I know you're, like me, you're an activist. I mean, you're 24/7 on this. It never leaves your mind. And you don't have a paid position. You're not strapped into a nonprofit where you actually are getting paid as the coordinator for everything, as most grassroots people that I know. How, here's what I really wanted to get to. How do you keep a balance in your life, Amie, to stay sane? No, I know you get emails that are just incredible from women that are incarcerated. You hear horror stories that you can't just, even put a band-aid on. And but you get to be the receiver of this stuff. And it's just gotten worse, it sounds like, in the past year. So it's
Um,
got to be, I mean, I see the discouragement in your face and everything, but how do you, what keeps your spirits up? What keeps you going?
well, I almost lost it a couple of weeks ago. I almost lost it. I was so I was going to consider myself washed up.
Mm,
I don't know what clicked in my head, but I realized I have not raised any funds that are going to provide any relief to the women inside whatsoever in the last 12 months.
mm,
I've been grinding, but I've been running in a circle.
mm,
And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. I had to, write a lot of messages and, pull myself off the ledge because I felt so overwhelmed with just the horror of the fact that the last 12 months, nothing for them. I couldn't send, you know, e- like even Christmas cards. There are no resources. And that's when I started to fully understand I have to do stuff that is for us exclusively until um, we're at a point where we can branch off and start taking on responsibilities and missions of other organizations or areas that need advocating. I have to focus on the women that I started the fight for. They
mhm,
have nothing,
mhm.
they don't have $200,000 and I don't
Who
have
does?
other,
Are there other organizations or anything that you feel like resources that you might normally have been able to tap into or something that you can't even, they're not even asking you to be a part of it? Are you being kept out of anything?
I think there's several opportunists in the game. Um, I don't know if anything I can directly 100% confidently say has taken, you know, food out of my people's mouth, but it exists. And what we're going to do is start telling the truth a little bit more often about how digital and virtual and online exploitation is a really big deal in
Mhm,
the nonprofit community,
mhm,
in California, in the
mhm,
incarcerated advocate community. Uh, the traumas, the images, the pain, and the desperation for freedom of the women inside is exploited on a very large scale. uh,
mhm,
Dangle a carrot of freedom in front of them and say you're going to do an advocacy campaign and you're able to raise 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000 for your organization, and they're still sitting in there and they don't have even a postcard, or their kids aren't taken care of. If none of that had any effect on them whatsoever, then what is the difference between that and picking cotton? Not a whole lot.
mm.
Not a whole lot. So this is all going into this new age slavery, and we're going to start talking about it.
It's a campaign or something, right? Can you mention anything about something you have coming up? And also, uh, I do want to, before we forget, it sounds like you're going to be launching a podcast later this year. So we'll be looking out for that for sure. And you say we're going to tell the truth more and more. What is this thing about? You mentioned slavery. Oh my God. You said something about digital.
Digital
I'll
slave.
let you wrap. We're going to wrap this up with this.
I think this is probably how we're going to jump into the whole podcast scene. It's time to start talking about how slavery never ended, um, and how it's continued in a virtual sense.
Mhm,
And we got a whole digital plantation that a lot of us are working on, unbeknownst to ourselves even.
mhm,
And I know it's gonna be so shocking. So we're just going to start cutting those tethers one at a time until people really understand what we're locked into, how horribly exploited we're being by even our own people on a regular basis. There's no collective thinking. People aren't thinking we're going to do this together. No, you're going to do this for yourself. Well, I'm hip to the game now, and we're gonna put a name to it, because once you put the name and you identify something, that's when you can go ahead and start beating it. And that's what we're going to do.
If this is the last thing that you say in this, is like looking into the camera and saying, imagine you're addressing whatever people you have in your mind. You want to give them the what's up right now?
We're watching. There's some of us that you're going to see. There's some of us you're not going to see, but we're aware, and we're working towards making sure that the bondages of digital and virtual slavery are going to be broken. And it's going to happen soon. And it's going to be very shocking to a lot of people, but it's reality. And that's where we have to live in order to survive. So get ready, strap your boots on, grab your hats and glasses. It's going down.
Amie, thank you so much. You've really brought something brand new to the table here. I think I know that you've been interviewed a couple of times, and you're doing what you can. I just really want to encourage people to go. It sounds corny. I know that money's stretched tight for a lot of people, but I know there are a lot of people that are going to see this that would be able to think about maybe giving up a couple of their lattes, in a day. The idea of, like you said, not even postcards. Well, it's still early in the year here. I want to encourage everybody to think about donating. You could do it through the website right now. I know there are many times that I've spoken to you and you've told me, geez, I got to get a bus ticket, for this woman. It's like $55 or something, or 100 and something. That's a drop in the bucket for a lot of people that would see this. If you think about doing one good thing. And I know that in general, people don't care about incarcerated people, men or women. But particularly right now, what we're looking at in February of 2022, cannot imagine being that vulnerable. And the women that you're getting these emails from, and I know because we've had these meetings, anybody seeing this, think about what would you do if it was a relative of yours, if it was a sister, an aunt, a mother, a grandmother. And there are a lot of reasons why people end up and women end up incarcerated. It's not all the whatever you think you have in your mind. There are a myriad of reasons that women end up incarcerated, and you've got to throw any judgments out the window worrying about what women did to get in prison. The fact is, they're there. And Amie, I'm very glad that you are not there anymore and you can be a voice, and we're going to keep this fight up. And I know you got a lot on your plate, but maybe some people will come through. Who knows? And I want to talk to you again and find out. And when you launch this next project that you're talking about, because we're looking at the fourth industrial revolution with what you're talking about, right, baby?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people have to remember, Joey, the way a nation treats their prisoners speaks volumes of what kind of government, what kind of people, what kind of society they have. And they treat us real bad. So it's just time. We got to recognize what's going on.
Okay, let's revisit this in a little bit of time. Thank you so much for talking to me, and we will talk soon.